ladies and gentlemen. So, something very, very interesting came across the wires a couple of days ago. And I was debating whether or not to even show you guys this because, to be honest, I didn't really want to scare anybody necessarily. But at the end of the day, guys, you know, at some point we're going to have to look into the abyss. At some point we're going to have to face the music here. Before I do that, guys, I'm going to show you a video from, this is a video from exactly a year ago, from the CEO of Schmeiser, Albert Schmurla. I'm talking in code right now because, you know, I don't know. Guys, this is verbatim. This is the CEO of Schmeiser, Albert Schmurla, speaking to NBC News exclusive, February 27th, 2021, almost a year ago, guys. I'm going to play this. In the words of Mark Levin, cut one, go. Let's see. Let's rewind this a little bit. 1 second. Just 1 second.
About your vaccine, is it more effective than we were originally told? Does it have weaknesses that have been exposed? What have you found out?
Notice his neck.
A lot of things, and we are keep analyzing it. And I believe Israel has become the world's lab right now because they are using only our vaccine at this time. Israel has become the world's lab right now because.
Okay, my friends, that's all I'm going to play for you. That's all I'm going to play for you. Everything else is irrelevant. You're saying context. Everything else is irrelevant. Israel has become the world's lab right now. February 27, 2021. My friends, by the way, out of all the red flags that I've been seeing since then, and even before that, with all this stuff, this was probably the thing that kind of like clinched it for me, or this was the low-hanging fruit that I would tell people, you know, without getting into a long discussion, why I didn't want to take that stuff. They asked me, I was like, you know what, there's a lot of red flags, but on a simple level, very simple, for little babies, for little infants, if you don't understand, I don't want to be a lab rat. You want to be a lab rat? Go be a lab rat. It's your choice. Really. And when I phrased it that way, guys, people got very upset. But guys, with that in mind, I'm going to read to you something that was written. Wonderful Substack post by a guy by the name of Josh Gutzkow. It's entitled, "The Israeli Ministry of Health actually did a survey of adverse events after the Schmooster dose." I'm going to repeat again. The Israeli Ministry of Health, again, I just showed you guys the video from Shmurla, actually did a survey of adverse events after the booster dose. And it's absolutely devastating. Okay, so he goes in to say, he says, important correction to earlier version, the hospitalization rate is closer to 3,000 people per million, 0.3%, not 5,000 per million, 0.5. I will update the post and explain the source of the error as soon as I get the chance. Okay, fine. Then he writes, well, surprise, surprise. The Israeli Ministry of Health conducted an actual survey of about 2,000 people 3 to 4 weeks after they received the third shot of the Pfizer Schmeiser vaccine, asking them about the adverse events they experienced following vaccination. The results are absolutely devastating to the program, the Schmeckstein program, and push for Schmeckstein mandates. They come to me from my brother in arms. Galileo is back, and boy is he pissed. Okay, this is another person. Amazing. Oh, wow, he did a whole translation here. Guys, we're going to read this. The survey report was released last week, February 9th, and from what I could find, it is not available on the Ministry of Health website, but only via a website for medical staff only. So it is not publicly available. Correction, it was released on the Ministry of Health Telegram channel. Something that's only available for medical staff. Guys, if it's only available for medical staff, you know this stuff is ironclad. You understand? There's no way somebody can put that they are, whatever. I don't know, Incredible Hulk or something like that, right? Just like what people have been claiming that Schmears has been doing. The report was greeted by the media mainly with near-dead silence, aside from a couple of articles downplaying the adverse events as mild and transient. This is after more than a year that every talking head on TV and every newspaper, large and small, assured the Israeli public that they were monitoring the safety of the vaccines and that they were obviously extremely safe because there were very few reports and most of them were extremely minor, and you were crazy conspiracy theorists to doubt it. Of course, the Ministry of Health, along with the CDC, completely ignores the unambiguous and unprecedented safety signals emanating from the U.S. SCHMERS system. So one second, guys, I'm getting a bombardment here. You know what? Never mind that the passive voluntary adverse events reporting system that the Ministry of Health put in place, which basically nobody knew about, like citizens hardly knew about this, was a complete farce. Let's see what the farce was about, or how was it a farce? Amazing, incredible. Yeah, so this guy typed, the world relies on Ministry of Health data regarding COVID vaccine safety and efficiency, but their data is worth nothing. In the following, I show how adverse event data collected is facade, resulting in evidently huge underreporting seen in numbers provided. See, this guy basically shows, like, unbelievable. This is unbelievable, guys. Okay, I'm going to read that after. They took a page from the pharma playbook by deliberately failing to gather data appropriately so they could turn absence of evidence into evidence of absence, meaning if somebody like me can't show anything, that means that there's nothing. Just because I can't show it, first of all, the onus is, my friends, the onus is never on people like myself, regular Joe Schmo on the street, to prove non-safety of a drug produced by a company. The onus is on the company to prove safety to me. I should not be bending over backwards. I should not be going through hoops to prove anything to anybody, my friends. We shouldn't be doing any of this. We work. This very time-consuming work. And they know we're not going to do the work, except for a few of us like us and this guy who concerned citizens or whoever they are. They know that, guys. Okay? So, absence of evidence is evidence of absence. You can't show anything, so therefore it doesn't exist. Right? The Ministry of Health didn't have to look further than their own Facebook page to find plenty of evidence. On September 30th, we remember this, I talked about this, guys. They put up a Facebook post deriding all the fake news on social networks about side effects and touting the safety of vaccines. Only 19 serious adverse events reported out of 3 million booster doses. My friends, this is impossible. This is mathematically impossible. It's impossible. It's like saying Bernie Madoff made 25% for 10 years or 20 years in a row for his clients. Impossible, guys. Not possible. Which might not even be related to the schmeck. The post was quickly flooded with thousands of comments from people describing in detail the severe events they or their loved ones had experienced after the booster and previous doses. See here for automated translation of many of them. See, the guy brought receipts. He brought receipts, guys. Unbelievable. It's like I just want to see if it's a video or it's going to start playing what this actually is. Amazing. Somebody at the Ministry of Health apparently panicked because they quickly started deleting hundreds, if not thousands, of comments. Yeah, Avi Barak spoke about this. They were caught in the act by people reading the comments who took videos of them being deleted one by one. There are actually 27,000 comments on that post. It is unknown how many were deleted. My friends, I mean, not surprising, this is the same government that took Yemenite children from their parents and gave them to Ashkenazi people. So, I love Israel, guys. I love the land of Israel. But the government? And apparently it had never occurred to the Ministry of Health to investigate why so many people never returned for the second dose, despite losing eligibility for the Green Pass or the right to work in countless workplaces requiring vaccination. One careful calculation I've seen estimated that by June 2021, there were about 180,000 people who had never returned for the second dose, a number that excludes people who recovered from an infection from the disease. That's over 3% of people who were vaccinated with one dose and eligible for the second at that time. At the FDA Advisory Committee hearing on September 17th to decide whether to approve the booster shot, Israel's data on the third dose played a starring role, including their safety data. It was extremely safe, they assured the FDA, as they had received so few reports, even less than the first two doses. And even most of the ones they did receive were not caused by the vaccine, including the woman in her 60s who had a stroke immediately after receiving the booster. Why wasn't it causally related? Because they said so. My friends, it wasn't related because they said so. And here it shows. Yeah, you see? There you go. There's a whole chart over here of this situation. While the FDA panel applauded Israel from being an exemplary laboratory, I wish I was joking, they nevertheless decided that the Israeli data was insufficient to approve the booster for people under 65. the Ministry of Health was undeterred. Israel. Thanks in part to the new policy requiring a third dose for Green Pass eligibility that prompted many reluctant young Israelis to go in for dose number 3, along with the army forcing it on draftees, people who do not need this, 18-year-olds, they were able to return to the FDA in the following month, October 14th, with more data they had gathered on the effectiveness and safety of the booster dose in younger populations. Again, with the same conclusion, extremely safe. Like, so safe. Never mind all those pesky Facebook posts and people who never return for dose 2. Meanwhile, the survey they were conducting on adverse events after the booster, which paints a completely different picture about its safety profile, was wrapping up and would be finished less than 2 weeks later on October 25th. It's worth noting that the Ministry of Health had ample time to analyze the survey data before recommending the 4th booster dose on January 25th. This is like a month ago. So what do the survey results tell us about the safety of the booster dose? What can they tell us about the extent to which the existing Israeli vaccine safety monitoring system was undercounting adverse events? And can we use them to estimate the underreporting factor for some events in Shmers? Short answers, horrible safety, massively undercounted, and yes, we can! Exclamation point. Here are some of the most important takeaways from the survey. Further down, I'll present all the results and conclude with some discussion of unreported events. Okay. 0.29% of people reported hospitalization as a result of the adverse event they experienced. Not just the emergency room, but actually being hospitalized. Think this is impossibly high? Read this footnote. If the numbers are wrong, the Ministry of Health needs to say so and explain how they messed up. Israel has administered about 4.5 million booster doses so far, which equates to over 13,000 hospitalizations. My friends, how many is too many for you? How many is too many? Give me a number. Pick it out of a hat. 1,000? 500? Guys, again, swine flu, we had 50 people die. Shut the whole thing down. Shut it down. Okay? Over 92 million booster doses have been distributed in America, which equates to nearly, he's just doing a ratio now, 270,000 hospitalizations in America. Note, in a previous version, I had mistakenly put the hospitalization rate at 0.5%, which is the rate among people who experienced any adverse event. Okay. Next, 29% reported that they had difficulty performing daily activities as a result of the adverse event. That is 44% of the 66.4% of the sample that reported at least one adverse event. Like in Shmers, women were more likely to report than men, 75% versus 58%, and also more likely to report difficulty in daily functioning, 51 versus 35. It's just the way women are with health and admitting that they have a problem versus men who just hide it. Guys, it's a regular thing. Okay, I'm one of these guys. Whatever. My father, we'll walk around with arm hanging off, has shalom, and one eye over here, and that's just how men are. That's it. Oh, I'm fine, everything's fine. Okay. 4.5% of respondents reported neurological problems, again, more women than men, including Bell's palsy, 0.5, blurred or disturbed vision, 0.5, seizures, convulsions, 0.15, loss of consciousness, 0.2. 16% of these neurological problems occurred within an hour of vaccination, an additional 27% within 24 hours, and 47% were ongoing by the time of the survey 3 to 4 weeks after vaccination. In the U.S., this translates to 460,000 cases of Bell's palsy and blurred or disturbed vision, 135,000 seizures, and 180,000 people losing consciousness. My friends, if you're talking about me, if you're telling me that 1 million people died of Shmovid, but you have 180,000 people who took stuff, and half of these people have Bell's, my friends, the solution cannot be as bad as the problem it's coming to solve. The solution cannot be as bad as the problem it's coming to flip and solve. Have you ever heard of a vaccine that is associated with seizures in 0.15% of adults who take it, let alone that is mandated by many colleges and workplaces? My friends, I haven't heard about it. And I'm not anti-vax, the other vaxes, okay? I haven't heard about it, I'm sorry. About 25% of people with pre-existing autoimmune disorders, depression or anxiety, reported a worsening of their symptoms following the booster. Baruch Hashem, I didn't take it because I have some of that stuff. 5 to 10% of people with diabetes, hypertension, and lung and heart disease also reported a worsening of their condition. My friends, Baruch Hashem, my parents took 2, and my father takes, he had a stroke, so he takes, stuff for clots, blood thinners, whatever it is. I guess that helps. I don't know. Nearly 10% of women under age of 54 had disruptions in their menstrual cycle. Yeah, guys, I had a friend who told me last year his 33-year-old girlfriend was having her period 6 weeks in a row, and she came to the hospital like, yeah, it's normal. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This is in Jerusalem, in Shaare Tzedek. What? After the booster, apparently they did not ask women above this age. About a half of this, I guess because they can't, whatever. Half of those women reported that the problems persisted at the time of a follow-up interview, which was anywhere from 10 to 16 weeks after vaccination. Of these, 31% sought medical treatment as a result, and 9% were on medication for it. Notably, 39% of these women reported similar disruptions following prior doses, of whom 1/3, which is a little over 6% of all women under the age of 54, were still experiencing symptoms at the time of the third dose. Given that the vast majority of vaccinated Israelis are fully vaccinated, whatever the hell that means, by the end of March, and the booster campaign for that age group did not get into full swing until late August, this means that these women were likely experiencing these symptoms from somewhere between 4 months. How badly did the Israeli vaccine adverse event reporting system undercount these events? We can calculate an approximation by comparing the Ministry of Health September 25th report on adverse events from the system to the survey results to calculate an underreporting factor, URF. If the URF is 100, this means you have to multiply the number of reported events by 100 to approximate the true number of events. It's especially important to know the URF when the public health officials disingenuously play down the risks of a medical product by saying that there have been very few reports of adverse events, while knowing full well that the true number must be much larger. The only question is, how much larger? The URF varies from a low of 1,700 for loss of consciousness to 48,800 for difficulty breathing. Some other highlights are URF of 6,500 for seizures, nearly 6,000 for Bell's palsy, and over 4,000 for blurry or disturbed vision. Actually, the URF was even higher for some milder general adverse events and for local site reactions. 54,000 for chest pains, 230,000 for a limited arm movement, and 540,000 for injection site pain. That these types of adverse events are so underreported is hardly surprising. The public was told to expect these kinds of reactions, and for the most part, they are relatively minor. Though note, in the last table below, how long so basically they set the bar so low that it's like, oh, whoop-de-doo, we have this problem. But it's a serious problem. It's chest pains. Guys, hello? Note that these URFs cannot be applied to VAERS for two reasons. The underreporting in Israel is probably much worse in the U.S. than in the U.S. for a variety of reasons. Israel does not conform to the international classification standard for adverse reporting. The US, UK, and Europe use the MED-DRA system. The Israel Ministry of Health apparently decided to make up its own classification system and continues to use it for reasons unknown. So comparison to other countries is difficult. Still, we can use the survey results to estimate VAERS underreporting for three specific adverse reactions: seizures, Bell's palsy, and shingles, herpes zoster, whatever this is. Okay, VAERS URF for seizures, underreporting factor for seizures, convulsions is 731. As of February 11th, there were 243 reports of seizures, convulsions reported in VAERS that occurred within 30 days of receiving the booster in the U.S. and territories. 143 of these were after Pfizer. As of February 11th, so he's doing only Pfizer now. 91 million booster doses had been administered in the U.S., of which about 50 million were from Pfizer. The rate of per million doses of seizures / convulsions to them in the Ministry of Health survey was 1952. See footnote 3 for method of calculation. So I'll tell you guys how we calculated this whole thing. There's a method here. From that rate, the expected number of seizures, convulsions after the booster in the U.S. by February 11th is 177,600 people. How did he calculate this, my friends? Okay. Here I'm including both reports and vaccination numbers through February 11th. That means for somebody vaccinated February 11th, they still have 4 weeks to have an outbreak of herpes zoster case and report VAERS in order to include it in the count of cases. This is therefore a conservative estimate. I could have constrained VAERS to an early vaccination date, but there are so many missing fields in VAERS data that doing so would likely exclude many cases of unknown vaccine. Guys, for those of you saying that VAERS is BS, again, I'm repeating again. If you're telling me that the CDC's own website is BS, it's a faulty website and it's flawed, then again, if we cannot measure safety in real time, we cannot administer the product. So clearly we're using this system and it is what it is, okay? Now he goes into 177,600 divided by 91 equals 731. If we want to make a strict apples to apples comparison, we need to look at reports after Pfizer only, in in which case the URF is 683. Ver's URF for Bell's palsy, 3,034. The expected number of cases of Bell's palsy after the booster, now he's going to America, 488,500. For the factor is 2825 for Pfizer. Ver's unreporting factor for shingles, 332 cases of shingles reported in Ver's, 196 after Pfizer. The rate per million doses of herpes zoster Ministry of Health survey was 1464. Expected number of herpes zoster cases after the booster in the US is 133,200 people. My friends, this is just, here's a table summarizing URF calculations for these three adverse events. So you put a table. Do you know of any other mandated medical treatment or vaccine that causes so many problems in such high proportion of the population? For that matter, how many mandated medical treatments have you ever even heard of? The result of the survey should have put an immediate end to the plans of governments around the world to continue to offer booster doses to their citizens, let alone condition basic liberties on getting one. And yet here we are. The only question is how much lower this report can limbo under the radar. My friends, if I didn't know any better, I think these people are trying to kill us deliberately. Either they're trying to just hide it because they don't want it out. Obviously, they don't want these companies to have issues and they just made a mistake, or they're trying to kill us deliberately. They're trying to kill us, my friends. Below are the tables showing the number and percent of reports from the survey and comparing those results, where possible, to the Ministry of Health report based on the passive surveillance system. I've also calculated the estimated total number of events that would be expected to occur in the US and Israel based on the survey reporting rate per million and the total number of booster doses administered in each country, based on approximately 92 billion doses administered in the US and 4.5 in Israel. My friends, in case you're wondering, how can this be applied one for one? Guys, again, Israel's the world's lab. They're ahead of everybody. It's a captive audience, so to speak. It's a nimble country, and it's probably the best, unfortunately, the best lab in the world, right, for this stuff. The full tables, including a gender breakdown, are available here. To read more about how you are first calculated, read this footnote number 4. I'm not going to have much commentary on the tables as they sort of speak for themselves. I'm also not going to show a table for local administration site reactions as they're relatively less severe and less interesting. See, here you go. Here you go, guys. This is probably going to be the scary part here. Tingling or itching sensation. That's the Israeli survey on the left. And here you go, US and Israel. Bell's palsy, blurred vision, memory problems, acute hearing disorders, 314,000 Americans. Seizures, 180,000, loss of consciousness. My friends, you think this is BS? Okay. Rash, itching, difficulty breathing, 500,000 Americans. Swelling or face or throat, 360,000 Americans. My friends, I'm in a Telegram group with people who report their stuff. A lot of these people did not report it to Shmers. A lot of people did not. You can only imagine how many people have issues. Look at this. Weakness or tiredness, 38 million Americans. Headache. Muscle joint pain, shaking. Fever of 101, 13 million Americans. We don't know. Dizziness, feeling faint. Nausea, vomiting, chest pain, 5 million Americans from this stuff. Digestive system disorders, enlarged lymph nodes, 3.7 million Americans. Coughing, anxiety, 1.8. Next, hypertension. How many of these people? Percentage with 6% of people with hypertension had it worsen. 24% of people had their autoimmune disease worsen, obviously. 26% have worse anxiety and depression. 5% have worse heart disease. 5% of people who had worse diabetes, of the people who had it. Lung disease, worse, 7%. My friends, look at this. Unbelievable. Menstrual changes. 2.8 million women in America. Menstrual changes. Delayed menstruation, 38%. This is in Israel. Increase in menstrual bleeding, onset menstruation. Yeah, my friend, I told some of my friends, this has been documented. I'm like, just because it's been documented doesn't mean it's good. Cessation of menstruation. My friends, look at this. Time to onset. Neurological. Within an hour, 27% of people within an hour, immediately 16%. Within 30 days, 29%. Most of the people, look at this. Duration up to 24 hours, 1 to 3 days. ongoing. 47% of people, ongoing neurological issues, my friends. 33% of people, ongoing allergic. 42% other. Incredible, guys. Incredible. Let's read further. A sizable percentage of events began on the same day as vaccination, but as we saw at the top, even if you have a stroke at the moment the shot goes into you, it may still be ruled a coincidence by the wise sages of the Ministry of Health. Guys, I mean, to them I say, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. They're engaged in an exercise of ghoulish gaslighting, and I honestly wonder how they sleep at night. They sleep just fine. To give them the benefit of the doubt, instead of being motivated by malevolence, their actions might be due to arrogance allied with ignorance. Since they don't know how the vaccines could possibly cause a particular problem, then obviously they couldn't have. Because they know everything, apparently. And you dare not question them, or you'll be shunned from polite society. I will save the deep-in-the-weeds methodological discussion for the final footnote, but it's worth pointing out, as I wrap up the survey, that the survey is notable for the events it doesn't include. They did not report one case of myocarditis. According to Israeli figures, the highest rate of myocarditis followed the second dose for every 6,600 boys aged 16 to 19, and significantly less for older people and females. It is quite remarkable that even one case was observed in the survey of 2,049 people, few of whom were in the highest risk category for myocarditis. This means that either it was a fluke or that the chances of myocarditis are significantly larger following the booster dose. Guys, this is a discussion that's being had already. It also means that to detect the events they did for relatively rare conditions like Bell's palsy or seizures means that these events must be far more common than myocarditis, at least among the population under study in the survey, which are older people. Well, yeah. And VAERS has over 11,000 unique types of events that have been reported for COVID-19 vaccines. At a later date, I may do a power analysis on the survey to try to estimate the likelihood of detecting certain types of events, but even without that, it is stating the obvious to say that the survey was unlikely to pick up any event that was likely to occur than say myocarditis. But since we're talking about millions or even billions of vaccinations, but events as rare as 1 in 10 or 20,000 equate to hundreds or hundreds of thousands of cases. One of the other things you won't see in the survey is the percentage of people who died within a month of being vaccinated, for the simple reason that you can't phone up dead people to find out what happened to them after vaccination, unless perhaps you use a Ouija board. My friends, the only way we're going to know that is when the insurance companies show us their numbers, non-COVID deaths. And, we know this guy Dowd has been talking about it. Edward Dowd's been talking about this a lot, guys. And we know that this is happening very soon. But I haven't seen a legitimate survey that uses that kind of methodology. On the other hand, I haven't seen a legitimate adverse event report organized using Ministry of Health categories, so maybe they'd be up for it. Ouija board, he means. Frankly, I'm surprised they did this survey in the first place, and even more surprised that they released this report at all. Guys, I mean, they're just covering their ass. It's nothing to be surprised about. It will be interesting to see how they tie themselves up into knots to deny the results of their own study. Or maybe they'll just ignore it and hope it goes away. It's up to us to make sure that doesn't happen. As a send-off, here are some bar charts summarizing some key takeaway points. There you go. Oops. There you go, guys. There you go. Look at this. 500,000 people. This is Americans based on the Israeli stuff. Unbelievable, guys. Just flippin' believable. Can't even. This is astounding, guys. Here's how he did this. Basically, what he did was here. The survey results were based on responses for 2,049 Israelis. Oops. The Ministry of Health reports based on passive surveillance were reported as events per million doses. You have to multiply 2049 by 488 to get to 1 million. So the number of each type of event was multiplied by 488 to approximate the total number of reports per million that should have been documented in the passive system if there was no underreporting, on the assumption that the survey is not underreported. Another option would have been to multiply the percentage by 10,000 to get the rate per million. The problem is that for many events, the number of events did not line up with the percentage. What I mean by that is if you took the number of events reported and divided by 2049, the result did not quite equal the percentage reported by the Ministry of Health. I can only guess as to why this was. Perhaps for each question, they excluded people who didn't answer the question and only used those who provided an answer as the denominator. I don't know, and it isn't written. However, since we know the full sample size, using the total number of people who reported an event as our baseline is a sound methodological choice. In any case, the differences between the two methods yield very similar numbers, and reveal the same magnitude of underreporting. I thank Oz Koren for laboring to compare the reports and calculate their URFs. There's another, this guy, Oz Koren. This guy's interesting. He looks like he's interesting. Yeah, guys. I mean, guys, what can we say? What can we say? I mean, here, see, this is from the Ministry of Health. Somebody shared a download. You can download 136 megabytes of these deleted messages that have been translated to English. There you go. Look at all these messages. My God, all these. There's about 964 pages of deleted messages from people. Unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm looking at this now, and I'm going to download this PDF. This is just, my friends, this is just, look at this. I'll show you. Instead of talking about it, I'll show you. Look at this. This is just, these are the deleted messages from the Ministry of Health Facebook page. See, this is their response, right? It just all translated to English. This is their response, and this is the fake news and misinformation. Look at this. These are all, look at this. 964 pages, but like you're talking about a lot of comments on each page, right? And responses, just all the way down. Look at it, it just keeps going and going and going. Look at this. Look at this. Demagogy at such low level. You urinate from the bounce, and that's all good. You help people wake up, and when the majority is awake, you will drown in your own pee pool. Even bad things have an end. I complained of side effects from the second vaccine. There was hardly room to write what happened. No one called to hear details, not even after a few months. At least do not lie to us in the face. Adio Flalo. Ron Gavrieli. Months after the second vaccine, I've already treated 3 young people under the age of 35 who had cardiac arrest. One died a year and a half of corona. I still don't know a single person who was seriously ill from corona. I think he's a doctor. Shiran Saeed. I have since, vaccine fear the endometriosis and problem nerve and lower back makes it difficult for me to go out sometimes. Never had back problems, right? Could be other reasons, but coercion, green label, and disregard for the vast majority of the public just makes me fear about the vaccine. 3, not understand where the pretentiousness comes from to ensure that there is almost no long-term side effects, let alone the enormous problematic nature of the green pass and the damage it caused to children, to self-employed people who work for our society. My friends, these are Israelis who took this stuff. These are all Israelis. 900,000 pages of like bunch of. This is just some of the stuff, guys. This is just some. It's just astounding, guys. It's just astounding. When I told my friends, that the Israeli government is capable of these things, they're like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean? And this and that." My friends, they just can't fathom it, guys. They just can't fathom it. They just can't fathom. See, this Matan guy did. There you go. Look at this. Yeah, myocarditis reported very low age groups. For some reason, it was after the first dose, very low. After the second dose, the older you get, the more cases. 16 to 19-year-olds, 37 cases in Israel. After the third dose, you get 30 plus. It's just weird. Why is it such low numbers for that particular adverse event? Yeah, there you go. Report online. Look at this. Israeli drug adverse events reporting system. Unlike USA's VAERS, EU vigilance, which are public and transparent, Israel had nothing like that. They created a link to fill forms, which supposedly will be sent to authorities for monitoring. My friend, this is like Soviet Union. A reference. Look at this. Check refresh, not after submission, therefore worth anything. No need for identifying details, meaning it can't be verified. Does every report enter the system? If I report 100 deaths, will it show up tomorrow? Fill up whatever you like and click send at the bottom. You'll get this. No reference number for submission. Nothing. After sending, you can click save as PDF. In the top left toolbox, they say it clearly. This document is not a confirmation of submitting the form. Remember, this PDF can be created only after sending. Oh, it has a reference number here, but for all practical purposes, this form was never filled. Me or any other person has no way to see it, to follow it, or track it later. Basically, what the system does is, Garfield, your opinion has been duly noted. There you go. But let's use the principle of charity and suppose the file does go to somewhere and somebody views it. What else can she do? There are no personal data, no way to validate the report. When I provided those a month ago, nobody called back. Yeah, this is to this doctor, Barak Hershkowitz or something. So they definitely don't verify the report. They don't even pretend to do so without identifying details. My friend, this is like Israel, typical Israel. This is just already this. Okay, this is from November 7, 2021. What can they do? Only decide in some magical way that what's true and what is fake and what is related and what is unrelated. They can take only 1% of them, for example. A very important word about related. Don't be fooled by doctors who know something is unrelated. They have no way to track the circle of events. It just means they didn't hear of increase or if prevalent such events after vaccine corollary, it's likely coincidence. If B, then A, if B, then A, if B, then A. But as long as you dismiss events because you don't know they are related, you wouldn't see any increase in statistics. And so this is a circular reasoning that will prevent us from understanding what's going on. Unless for some external reason the signal will show up. For example, before the myocarditis signal was processed, probably all those cases were dismissed as unrelated. Maybe even some of those unrelated severe events in Pfizer's clinical trial were actually myocarditis. You see? Oops, what did I just do? Oh my goodness, disappeared. Okay, the methods section now, the results. Remember, I claimed that the number are clearly seen to underreport. Wow, this guy really went into it. Yeah, there you go. This is pretty much the same thing. Just nobody cared to report and nobody cared to collect. So it's not important as those effects are not life-threatening and their prevalence is pretty much known from the trial. But presenting that as collected data is ridiculous. Unless Israelis got the placebo. Wink. My friends, this is what I'm hoping about. Severe adverse events. In similar report to Ministry of Health claims to compare no of all X-type events within a month after vaccination to regular month. Remember, only by comparing the number of all events we can know if evidence has changed, not only those someone think are related. So they claim that in the fourth month after vaccination, there were only 0.2 per million heart attacks, while in an usual month there was 160. Did the hospitals get empty and all doctors go to the Maldives? Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's not funny, but yeah, just the way it's funny. Of course not. The comparison is not fair. They list only a very tiny fraction of events. Probably only those a doctor decided are related, quote unquote, and dismissed all the rest. The support for this is no report. Why should there be a report? Who you should compare only to raw numbers as is. Slide 18. Yeah, you see this? I mean, it's in Hebrew, but yeah, arthritis, abortion. My God, yeah, like what is it called? Miscarriage. So basically, they compare doctor-confirmed related events to a usual month and claim, wow, there are less doctor-confirmed related events compared to the usual number. But they claim to list all events regardless whether related. Just ridiculous. Direct evidence for ignoring reports. Okay, so now he's getting to that post and people were responding, whatever. Discussion. Identifying signals of adverse events is a very challenging task. Identifying myocarditis took a few months. Can't rely on 2 months of data. On top of that, Israel's data collection is messy, not transparent, and evidently missing. Israeli data shouldn't be relied upon. Crazy. Then compile those numbers into scientific paper format and present it as science. But no sophisticated analysis, there you go, compensate for garbage data. If the numbers represent nothing, the statistical analysis means nothing. The risk of benefit analysis is worth nothing. My friends, wow, people like awesome work, great resource, this and that and the other. My friends, what can I say? Like we've been saying before, the data with the insurance companies is coming out. In America and in Europe, the data with the funeral homes is coming out. This is something that was written by, I mentioned this before, but here you go. This is by Edward Dowd. He's a former BlackRock guy, and this is what he wrote, guys. And I'm going to end with this. Guys. There you go. Edward Dowd explains the mushrooming tells that underpin his Schmack's fraud thesis. Long-term safety data on the vaccines takes 7 to 10 years. You can't warp speed safety information. Schmeiser failed the all-cause mortality endpoint in its clinical trial. More people died in the vaccinated group than in the placebo. Typically, drugs don't get approved if they fail that critical hurdle. It's the gold standard in drug approval. Number 3, the FDA aggressively lobbied to hide information it relied upon to license Schmeizer's COVID vaccine, asking a federal judge, this is true, guys, this is true, can be looked up, it's a real case, to make the public wait until the year 2096, a total of 75 years, for the full set of data. We'll all be dead by then, guys. The widely respected British Medical Journal reported damning revelations from whistleblower Brooke Jackson, who described how Pfizer falsified data and manipulated its COVID vaccine clinical trials. For example, Jackson noted that the participants in her cohort had been unblinded after 2 months. Unblinding is a clinical trial deal breaker because knowing whether a person was vaccinated could influence the decision to test for COVID and report side effects. The supposed 95% vaccine efficacy was based on the fact that only 8 people in the vaccinated group got COVID versus 162 in the placebo, a difference of just 154 potentially untested, unblinded people. Number 5, in its Q4 earnings release, Schmeiser quietly added new warning language, quote, risk associated with further information regarding the quality of preclinical, clinical or safety data, including by audit or inspection, and highlighted concerns about clinical data integrity. And they added because of misinformation, misinformation. Us looking at the data and seeing that there's a problem, misinformation. Okay. Number 6 more life insurers have joined One America, this is an insurance company, in reporting unheard of spikes in death claims among young working age individuals in the second half of 2021 versus pre-pandemic 2019. Deaths increased. We're talking about non-Schmovid deaths, my friend. Non-Schmovid. 40% Q3 One America. 36% Q4 Unum. 57% Q4 Lincoln Financial. 41% Q4 Prudential. 21% rise, Q4, Reinsurance Group of America, RGA. 32%, The Hartford, Q4. 268%, Q3, Aegon. This is a Dutch company. 56%, Q4. And the last but not least, life insurers have started reinsuring their high face value individual policies at bargain prices. Dowd notes that while the economics look bad now, passing the death benefits hot potato to a reinsurance group may be a genius move in the long run. Aegon, for example, is predicting 300,000 excess deaths in 2022, in part due to, quote-unquote, indirect COVID. Indirect COVID. Translation, the jab. My friends. See, I spoke to Ephraim about this yesterday on our podcast, and he said to me, Tzvi, even if all this stuff is true, even if it all comes out, even if it all gets out there, who cares? He goes, is anybody going to do anything? I don't know, guys. Is anybody going to do anything? We're so demoralized. Is anybody going to do anything about it? In the words of Al Pacino, what are you going to do about it? A-hole. You company man. Guys, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to do something? Is someone going to go to prison? Is someone going to be, hanged on Purim? I don't know. What are we going to do about this? Are we going to line people? What are we going to do? I don't. Here you go. This is the survey of Israel that they did. This is the translated to English survey. There you go. Here. Importance of the survey. From data collection by medical teams or self-reporting by the public of side effects in temporal proximity, it appears that there is an underreporting. Therefore, it is important to identify side effects in temporal proximity to vaccination with a booster. They admit this. This is the Ministry of Health, guys. In active manner by a dedicated survey. General goals. To determine the frequency of Schmid effects which appeared within 21 to 30 days from vaccination with a third Schmeiser shot against Schmovid among citizens above 18 years of age. One sec, guys. Specific goals. Examine the prevalence of Schmid effects in temporal proximity to the third shot grouped according to age and gender. Examine the time of onset, relative administration of the vaccine, duration thereof, compare it with the side effects of previous vaccines. Survey type, retrospective cohort. Population segment, Israeli citizens 18 and over and vaccinated with the Pfizer booster shot 21 to 30 days prior to being interviewed. General criteria, citizens living in the community, Hebrew speakers. Exclusion, those who recovered from Schmovid prior to the survey being conducted, those without a contact phone number, those who showed difficulty comprehending and were incapable of being interviewed. Sampling method. The sample was taken from Health Ministry's database of vaccinated individuals, which includes data on all individuals who have been vaccinated for COVID, Schmovid, and updated on a daily basis. From the database, only people with telephone number were sampled, about 75% of the total database. The survey sample was random and stratified by gender, male, female, age group 1839, 40 to 59, 60 plus. The survey received authorization of the Information Committee and the Supreme Helsinki Committee of the Health Ministry. Data acquisition, telephone interviews. One second. Oh, hi. What's going on? Oh, sure. Ladies and gentlemen, you got the point. You got the point. I have a friend over here who agrees with me. He's from Israel. You got the point. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about it?